listening to the Dominance Academy podcast, www.thedominanceacademy.com.
What's going on, everybody? Hope everyone's doing well on this fine Sunday afternoon. I know I am. It's always a good day to be a man. And just get myself situated here. Yes, so today we've got a good show. I've got some notes that I'm going to read from because it's just a lot of fucking information that I had to get down, and I didn't want to miss anything. So we're going to talk about sexual submission and training through verbal command. And there's a bit to it, but you can start very easily. You can start very easily when it comes to sexual submission and encouraging that with your woman and getting her to the point where she is taking verbal commands from you. And it's a very easy place to start within the bedroom. And then from the bedroom, it can transfer over into the other areas of life, the other areas of your relationship. Yes, get my mint green tea. So, let's get into it. Let's see here. All right, sexual submission. I guess I don't need this window open. Got a lot of fucking windows open. Trying to get myself some boots, so I'm like looking around. I've got these cap boots. I like these dress boots that have the zipper on the side. And
you are listening to the Dominance Academy podcast, www.thedominanceacademy.com.
Sorry about that. Forgot that this was looping. All right, so let's get into that. But yeah, I've been looking for boots. I've got these brown Oxford boots that have the zipper on the side, 6-inch rise, and they're awesome. But I need a pair of black ones, so that's kind of what I'm doing. Chilling out, taking Sundays light, man. I scheduled no appointments and scheduled 0 appointments, and just trying to set up everything for next week and just trying to take it easy on a Sunday. So I hope you guys are taking it easy as well. What's up, King Solar Power? I like saying your name, Solar Power. Anyways, so let's get into it. All right, sexual submission. Pardon me, I've got like a little bit of a runny nose, so I apologize if I'm sniffing into the mic. I'll try not to do that. All right, so you sometimes find people scratching their heads as to why. I talk about spanking a lot. So I talk about domestic discipline and spanking within relationships quite a bit. And you sometimes find people scratching their heads as to why spanking is, such a sexual act. They're trying to figure out why men love to, smack some ass when they're making love to their wives or their girlfriends or whatever. And where does this sex and spanking connection lie? Okay. And because it's definitely like a norm, you'll have even like people who are not into BDSM or anything like that, they will bring spanking into their bedrooms, and it's totally normal. So it's like, where does that sort of come from, And there have probably been some extensive studies trying to uncover an answer and perhaps some scientific experiments, but it's not really hard to solve the mystery. Okay, spanking is sexual because it's connected to some of the same forces as sex, and I believe it was Oscar Wilde who had a great quote, and he said that everything is about power. What did it say? Oh, no, everything is about sex except sex. Sex is about power. And that's really what it is. And when men, this is why I encourage guys to mind their impulses and desires when it comes to physical pleasure, because this is what allows you to be in control. This is what allows you to be a commander, right? And this, so it's imperative that guys control their desire for sense pleasure, and this is what allows you to lead more clearly in the bedroom. So it's connected to the same forces as sex and reflects some of the same in relationship. Similar key factors are at play. So for that reason, many men desire to take their wives or their girlfriends after spanking them, and they'll fuck them. And sex itself can be used as a wonderful tool in teaching women submission. So a man who takes his woman frequently in bed is helping her to learn how to be his woman. And so this is why it's important to have frequent sex with your woman and to have it in the way that you want it to be, because you're teaching her through you and your actions and through your words, and we'll get into that later, how to submit to you. And it's very, I mean, sex is a very visceral experience, especially for women. So they're more they're more open during sex. It's a very vulnerable state for them. So they're more inclined to listen, to follow, to take orders, and feel that submission in that context. He teaches her, by having sex with her. All right. And a man shows his woman his strength, his power, and his firm grip on her, as well as his words. And the woman experiences his strength and yields to it. She's moved by it, or she's held down by it. And his leadership is there throughout the entire act of having sex, whether it's his dick opening her up, or his arms wrapping around her, or pinning her down, or if you get into more controlled aspects through bondage, or hand around the neck, or whatever. He's showing that he's mastering her in that moment. All right. Sorry. So the man shows his power in bed not only by his brute strength and his hardness, all right? He shows it by his knowledge of his woman, right? Of her body, how she needs to be touched, every kiss that he gives her, or the stroking on her skin, and knowing her erogenous zones, and how to bring her to ecstasy, and how completely in his hands she is. And the man never ceases to be in control in this way. Even when he devotes his attention to giving her pleasure, like in some situations, he's just like, fuck it. I'm just going to drive her to very heightened levels of ecstasy. Even when he's firmly devoted his attention in that session to her pleasure, he's firmly in control of her body, her mind, her emotions, and so on. And she can feel his grasp over her as he leads her to give up all control to him, to his hands, his lips, his mind, his words, everything. And a woman who's fucked frequently, she will grow in submission to her man, right? So if you span it out too much, then it's going to be difficult for her, all right? And then if you do want submission, it's going to take other skills and tactics. Okay, so this is for the guys. Say if you've got a woman, and she's not your woman, but you're seeing her, and maybe say you fuck once a week. Okay, that fucking once a week isn't going to create submission. It's not going to do it. You're going to have to do other things in order to grant that to happen. All right. So you make love frequently, all right? And she'll grow in submission and devotion to him, but she becomes, by his dick, by his strength, she becomes accustomed to yielding to him. And that's what you want to do. You want to build up that familiarity, right? Along with the safety of that, but you want to build the familiarity of submitting to you. Being soft to his power is ingrained in a lot of women, all right? It's just, some have barriers and all that bullshit, but that's not what this is about. And the man who trains his woman to be this way, right, through consistency, will find that she more easily submits the rest of the time and in other areas of the relationship. She's submitted in bed in the deepest way possible, and that's where you want to take her. You want to take her to submitting her entire being when you're in bed. And it'll be easier later when she has her clothes on and she's in the kitchen, or you're in the grocery store, or you're having an activity. It creates a tone that you can then ride on that tone and include even further instruction and command. I'd even go so far as to say that the bed takes her in is like a microcosm of the relationship, of the union of their life, their emotion, the mind, and the spirit. The power and yielding expressed in the bed manifests the experience of the whole relationship. It's an expression of their unity. So how things are acting and how things are playing out and how she gives herself to you is this micro example. It's a microcosm of the greater picture. And so, just take that to heed. All right, so for this reason, a man should know he does not only lead his woman by making rules and enforcing them, he leads her always in everything. The sex act, the physical closeness in general, function to reinforce his leadership and deepen the submission. He should be aware of this as he takes her in bed and as he has her sexually serve him regularly. A woman may already have a clear mental idea of submission when she gets together with this guy or when she gets married and openly assents to it. However, learning can be a whole other thing. It can take experience in getting into shape. Even women who tend to be more submissive personality by nature, as my woman does, still need to grow in putting it into practice. So they could have like a baseline feature of submission, but how that's expressed in the relationship has to be taught. It has to be trained. And training, especially sexual training, gives her repeated and powerful practice doing so. So her man masters her. He knows her deeply, and he knows every inch of her body and gets to know her mind and her spirit, and then makes it his alone. At that point, it's like now because he's learning so much about her, he can then master more aspects of her until it's the entire thing. So, training her with commands. A woman giving her body completely is normal, right? It's normal, and this is a good thing. This giving of her body reflects her submission to her man, her femininity, her belonging to him. She gives sexually just as she gives her in her soul, her words, and her actions. Giving her body is not unique to situations that involve spanking, but is simply a normal part of two people becoming one. All right, man and woman belong to one another. Right? They fit together like puzzle pieces. There's no barrier between bodies. A woman fulfills her man's desire in this way. A man can use this complete giving of the body to enhance his woman's submission by training her to respond to a few simple commands. With his commands, she will have to learn to be fully vulnerable to her Lord and fully available to him when he desires. She is his. And this is even more evident when you become married, because when you become married, you become one. So it becomes not two bodies, it's one body. And so you can't have one body doing two different things. It's one body. Her man's words may unlock her, like pretty much at any moment. And this is one of the most immediate and effective ways to realize submission in your relationship. All right, so a couple of commands. All right, so one simple command that a woman needs to learn to respond to in your relationship. All right, I'm not talking about your sexual trysts that happen once every 2 weeks or something like that. This is something that you're developing, okay, that you're in, and this is where it's most effective. So one of those simple commands is get on your knees. Just simply get on your knees, and it's really simple. And if you're having sexual submission in the bedroom, then outside the bedroom, this is more easily integrated. All right. So get on your knees. Naturally, her man speaks this in, appropriate times, not while at the mall or, grocery shopping or something like that, when they have at least a moment alone. All right. It teaches her a submissive position, okay, on her knees in front of her man, and usually leads to her submissive behavior, as her man usually will have her give head and enjoy her mouth for a little while. Or this is a point where you're going to just give other instructions, okay? Whatever it may be. whether it's something physical for you or for her to learn something, or it's time for needing some kind of a lecture, or you're going to be giving instructions for something that you're about to do, in an hour or whatever. Okay. But oftentimes a blowjob is the usual result. This free giving helps her deeply learn and belong to him, and also to be secure in it. And that secure in the sense that her man is in control and she is fully his. All right. That she experiences his strength and shows her beautiful yielding to it. She is his delight and fulfills his desire. Another useful training command. Okay, so the first one is get on your knees. Another useful training command is bend over. All right, so this is for sexual things like bending over the couch, bending over the bed, getting on all fours, that sort of thing for sex, but then also for spankings. And this could be spankings that are used for arousal or spankings used for some sort of correction of behavior. Okay, but either way, the command bend over is really simple and very effective. It's good to implement. All right, so even if they're not in the bedroom, right, in some other room, and do not have time to have sex, he can find her alone and have her bend over. He may simply grab her and play with her from behind, right? He may choose to take her from behind as well. Either way, she learns to obey her man and fully give to him. Bending over is like kneeling, okay? It's a powerfully submissive position, perhaps even more so because she's facing away from you. And she's revealing her backside, be it like her actual back as well as her butt, her hamstrings. It's all like very vulnerable places where she can't defend herself. You know what I'm saying? On one's knees, they're facing you. They can see things coming her way, and she could defend herself. Or this is like anybody who's on their knees. Okay, when your back is turned, you're very vulnerable, and also psychologically because you don't know what's coming. Okay, so when they're actually bent over, this is a time for more instruction, more verbal instruction to help her be okay and understand what's going on there. All right. So moreover, accentuates his command since she cannot see him without straining. The woman must present herself to him submissively and sexually and experience him taking whatever he wants. Her ass and her pussy are in his hands, right? They're right there. And it may just be a playful 2 minutes together, or because of the situation, but it, whatever, it gives her a chance to show her place and to feel his command, right? Whether it's his dick or his hand or whatever, Hold on 1 second. I was just waiting for a couple of things to come in. Oh, never mind. Okay. All right. So lastly, no training would be complete without the command of take off your clothes. And this is very useful, very practical. All right. And the immediate vulnerability of undressing and being like a feast for her man's eyes shape a woman to know her belonging and to know his control. She is looked at. All right. And this is in the instance where you're fully clothed and you're telling her to get naked. Right. So she's vulnerable and exposed. All right. And this is like a subtle way of creating that vulnerability and sort of like breaking part of that part of her that protects her. Okay. Her clothes are a form of protection. Okay. All clothing is. So by removing that and exposing her, it kind of like creates more of a power dynamic. All right, so her body's on display and he may do with her whatever he desires. Okay, he may only enjoy her with his eyes for a little while. He may have her turn around or pose for him so his eyes can enjoy her more fully. He may choose to take her and ravish her right there. A woman should know that there's no barrier between her and her man. They are one, right? And this is if you're in a solid committed relationship or marriage, right? Clothing disappears in a second. She may see her body, take her, enjoy her at any time he desires. She may not hide anything from him or hide or behind a veil. It will be stripped away, right? There's nothing to hide. And he knows every inch of her body, every curve, every crevice, every crack, and knows the whole thing. Okay, and you can even further this, where say you've got a rule. Okay, you can definitely have a rule where say whenever I come home, you are to be either naked or in something revealing and loose, so that I can have easy sexual access. Okay. So that's something else that you can do, and create this into rules. Or when I come home, you are to be on your knees, right? So these sort of like commands of being naked, getting on your knees, bend over, or even bent over. Like I've gone to visit my girl, and before I got there, I say, listen, I want you wearing this, because I know her clothes. I say, I want you to wear that particular piece of clothing, and I want it hiked up over your ass, and I want you on all fours waiting on the bed. And and that's how, and I come in, and that's exactly how she's standing. So you can have these commands right in the moment, or you can use it as part of some sort of ritual, right? To like preset the mentality of submission before you're even present. Okay. So I'm sure there are men, and I'm one of them, who develop more commands than this, but these three are very easy and very useful. All right. And that's fine, right? Whether you got a lot or a little, it doesn't really matter. Or I think it's best when you're first starting out to keep things really simple. Keep the instructions simple, because they're easy to do, and they're also easy to follow. And they'll help a woman to learn inside of what it means to belong and to fully submit. The vulnerability and the physical acts themselves are a teaching tool. She will learn to respond better with training her sexually. She is learning through her body and her soul. Remember, a woman who submits to her man is submitting to him sexually, right? She's submitting to him sexually as well. There's no separating the sexual submission as well as everything else. Okay, she's giving her body, her sex, and every part of her to her man. All right, and he takes them and he claims them all. All right. Pardon me. All right. Pardon me. So one of the simplest and well-known ways to help a woman grow in her submission and in yielding to her man is to have her regularly give oral sex. Okay. And she should be comfortable kneeling in front of you already. Okay. And this is just something that you can do where it doesn't always have to lead to oral, right? So you get her comfortable with coming to you and kneeling. Then you can easily add in oral. And it's not this big jump. Okay. By giving a command for oral, because she's already used to being on her knees in front of you. You see what I'm saying? So, or I would say she should learn to satisfy him, as he desires, and you should be instructing her on how to best do it for you. All right. Spending time regularly on her knees helps a woman in her sense of belonging to him and in her sense of submission to him. It is appropriate in a woman learning all of these things. Your woman, okay, not every woman. All right. The position itself teaches submission to her man over her, and the act teaches her to be open to her man's desire and command, and gives her a chance to feel his power intimately. It teaches her to focus herself on his pleasure of fulfilling his desire, right? So getting pleasure from fulfilling your desires. And you can do this also, you can reinforce these things with commands by telling her how she's feeling. Like, it sounds like kind of messed up, but you can tell her while she's going down on you how she's feeling, right? And telling her how wonderful she feels, how happy she is to please you, all right? And be very direct about these things. Naturally, the man should be in the lead when he's having his woman go down on him. And some women view giving head as the opposite, okay? As a means to controlling their man, right? Because they think they're in control of the pleasure, right? And whatever, that's a thing. The man should be sure to be in the lead. He tells her when to pleasure him and how. He instructs her on how to give all the details of what he enjoys. How to use her lips, how to use her tongue, how to use her throat, how to use her hands. And he tells her when to take it deep and when to take it shallow. He shows her when he is pleased with her work. So you also have to include verbal praise, all right? Verbal and sometimes physical praise while she's in the act. And, and praising for what he likes. And, also, helps like not losing control. A man also instructs his woman, in her womanhood while she goes down on him, he tells her that she belongs to him. So during the act, you use certain verbal commands like you belong to me, you are mine, and you can have her respond while her dick is in while your dick is in her mouth, and that's a very, very powerful place to be in, right? Where she is speaking while your dick is in her mouth and saying yes or yes sir or anything along those lines, yes daddy or whatever, okay? And she needs to give up everything to her man. She is under your power and it's completely yours. Your words help a woman to learn her place when she's on her knees, and you teach her the way to please you. And I say this all the time, that it's really important to use positive reinforcement, okay? Because women are full of insecurity. They're full of doubt. So the more instruction you can give and the more praise you can give during those times of instruction, help her become more confident in her role. You should also make sure that she works hard when you send her on her knees to please you, okay? Like, don't just sit back and accept the fact that, like, your dick is in her mouth, okay? Not all women are good at giving head, all right? And yes, it's kind of like pizza, right? Like, all pizza is edible, but there's some pizza that's far better than others. And yes, a shitty blowjob is like, okay, but we've had really good blowjobs before. And if she's not doing it right, it's up to you to instruct her on how best to please you. She's not going to figure it out if you don't tell her. You have to give her instructions. You could even send her videos. You can, there's like instructional videos. There's some on porn sites and things like that where you can go through this together. If you need like a visual aid, if you don't have like the ability to teach that directly and you want a little bit of assistance, that's fine. Okay. So don't let her get away with only working this or that. Like, have her do exactly what you want done. She should learn how to take care of you completely, whatever it is you want, like the shaft, the head, the balls, whatever. But you have to be clear. You have to be direct and take your time in training her in what you like. Be prepared to be patient, as it can take time for her to learn sometimes, be it the acts themselves or your personal tastes, right? So she might not be accustomed to blowjobs, period. Okay. So you have to train her up to that point. Then when she's there, train her on the details of how to do it properly for you. Okay. And she'll pick up naturally on many things that excite you by like paying attention to your arousal and things like that. But your taste might change over time. So there's always adapting that needs to be done. Okay. And most importantly is that she focused on giving herself to you completely and serving you on her knees. Like, that's the mentality behind it, right? It's not about you being pleased, even though she's focused on giving pleasure. Your end is more focused on instruction. Okay. And naturally, a man aids his woman in her submission when he physically takes charge of the act. He takes her calmly and with control and guides her face down onto him, right? She can feel his hands gripping her hair or around her cheeks, around her neck or whatever. And he moves her down and up as he desires, okay? He may take her mouth as he takes her in bed, right? Stuffing her, wide open face with his dick and thrusting into her until she knows she is a receptacle for his desire. And this way, most boldly, he takes control and she loses it. All right. And then this can go into other types of training, like deep throat training and, how she can breathe and deal with the saliva and all that stuff. And, that's in the course as well. So the man be enjoying her mouth to his great pleasure, but he can also take the time to stimulate her body as well with his hands as he opens her up and tells her what to do. So I like to, like, while she's like on her back, her head is tossed over the edge of the bed, and doing some face fucking there, I like using a toy. And and I time my movements and things like that along with the vibrator. So as I go deeper, and this is something you can do as far as like training goes, is as you go deeper, you use the vibrator on her. And so then there becomes a bond, or becomes a link between you going deep in her throat and pleasure. And then when you come out, take the vibrator off. You go back in deep, put the vibrator back on, right? And you can just like, instead of thrusting, you can just hold it there. So, just training her to hold that in her throat. And then all the while, you're putting a lot of stimulation on her clit with a vibrator. Then you pull out, take the vibrator off. So you're creating that association. All right. So that's something I like to do. Okay. By his words, he should be encouraging her. So all the while, the entire thing is training. It's not just about like you getting off. You know what I'm saying? It's like, while you're doing what I just described, there's also verbal commands. There's also verbal praise and things like that. Telling her again that it feels so good, right? Telling her, oh, baby, it feels so good to have my dick all the way down your throat, doesn't it? Respond to me. Right? And you're doing this while the vibrator's on her pussy. So it sets up, right? So you're getting through the ears, you're going through her throat, you're going through her pussy, and you're connecting all of these dots. Okay. And this can then transverse into anchors and things like that. So this can go very, very far, where you can create like a phrase, and now she's started salivating in a non-sexual context, thinking about sucking your dick, and it's making her pussy wet, or she's getting physical pleasure just thinking about it. All right. So this can go very deep in terms of like, operant conditioning and all that bullshit. But anyways, so he's calm and firm in control when he takes his woman's mouth, and there's nothing like giving regular oral pleasure to her man to aid a woman in her softness. She needs to go down on her knees for him. It becomes her normal position, and she learns to be passionate about giving him pleasure and excited by losing control. Her devoted sexual service helps her blossom in her daily submission. I'm not going to tell you how often your woman ought to be giving you head, but it should be common. It should be regular, commonplace, daily or multiple weekly sort of situation. Between giving it a while, having sex is a form of training, or is a sign of graciousness. After she's disciplined, she will spend much time on her knees, wide open and pleasuring her man. It bears mentioning again that in speaking about sex and submission, I'm not trying to suggest that intimacy between a man and woman is simply a one-way experience. It's not, okay? With a woman giving all the pleasure and the man's getting all the pleasure. I'm speaking uniquely of having her give head to enhance her submission, right? It's not about you getting off. It's about using oral sex as a tool to facilitate submission in your woman. So I describe a method of training that does not reflect what the bed looks like on a day-to-day or week-to-week, right? This is just for training the mind, right? Using your dick to train her mind. Naturally, in the bed, both people, share their bodies, and, with the sharing of the bodies comes, a focus on giving pleasure to one another. Right? And a man should care deeply about the pleasure of his woman during intimacy and seek to satisfy her, both sexually and emotionally. That's his responsibility as a man, and that's part of leadership. I speak of oral training as a separate practice from that to help her grow as a devoted woman. All right? Sex is often used to enhance headship and submission after discipline session has been given. Some couples use sexual activity afterward only for a reconnect, and regularly use it as a time to have sex. They almost immediately go under the covers after a spanking. Others use intimacy as a means to reestablish the order that's been broken by her misbehavior. It gets things back in their place. The man is in control. The woman is yielding to him. They're as close as they can ever be. So there's two different schools of thought in this. Okay, so one school of thought says if a woman is misbehaving, you need to fuck her good to remind her of where she has been, to remind her of her place. Okay, another school of thought says you do not reward her with dick. You don't reward her for misbehaving. Okay, and you use other means to bring her back into a submissive state. I'm not going to say which one is better than the other because there isn't. It all depends on your program and your principles and what you believe in and how you think things should be run. Also, while knowing how your woman operates. Because if you already know that through sex, it reminds her of her place and her submissive mindset, then you do that. If you know that sex isn't it, but she requires a good spanking or a good scolding, then that's it for you, right? So it really depends. But those are the two typical schools of thought, okay? In many homes, a woman may need to perform orally for her man to thank him for giving her the discipline. So sometimes after a discipline, after a lecture, after a spanking or whatever, it's now she's going to. Usually there's thanks involved, right? So in my situation, there's always a verbal thank you for the correction, all right? The thank you can also be in the form of giving head, all right? And you can use that as sort of like this reward. I'm rewarding you with allowing my dick to enter you in one form of fashion, okay? And then this makes that bond, makes that psychological bond between submission, dick, and now giving thanks as a reward for being corrected, all right, and for taking discipline and not making a big deal out of it. Okay, just taking it on the chin. It's her way of showing appreciation for the guidance that she's received. He's taken the time, thought, strength, and energy to discipline her, right? And he may want a sign of her appreciation along with a verbal thank you, sir. She may also need to pleasure him to show what her new and better attitude will be. So this is an opportunity to show her a changed self after learning her lesson, okay? Oral sex is especially appropriate for this as she is on her knees, manifesting her position before her man and working to please him. A woman giving oral after getting spanked is making things right with the one she has offended. And she is giving him a great example of her future behavior. Her softness and her desire to please is on display in going down on him. Her man may encourage her while she works down there about her future good behavior and what he looks forward to seeing from her. Again, it's not about your pleasure, it's using your dick as a tool to teach. He may also remind her that he is the one who looks after her, guides her, teaches her, and corrects her. She is greatly valued, but she needs to follow her man at all times. She needs to serve him, and he tells her he is sure that she can do it. So you're giving that encouragement and that you believe in her, okay? And is confident in her growth and submission. She receives instruction while his dick is deep within her. And you can, like I said before, you can have her respond while your dick is in her mouth. Some women find it very natural to kneel and suck their man after being spanked, okay? And they have already felt his power and want to submit to it in a form much more pleasant than a spanking. They've just been tenderized and yearn to show their complete submission. Other wives and other girlfriends do not find it easy, and it grates on their ego, especially after already being humbled and corrected. So it's like they take it as like kicking someone while they're already down, okay? With time, they will see the purpose and value of this service, and at least will do it out of obedience because that's what their man desires, okay? So little extra stuff, like with oral, many men train their wives and girlfriends to be submissive by giving them anal, okay? And they see the difficulty of the act requiring greater giving and greater submission on their part, all right? They see how it makes her more submissive. They also recognize that a woman who has been taken, from the ass has now held nothing back from her man, and he's had her every way that he can. It's natural for men to see this as a very dominant act as a simple way to top their wives and girlfriends. They they like that some pain for them is involved. Occasionally, anal becomes used as a way to finish discipline and reestablish submission. But from all the discussion I've seen and studies and things like that, that's not terribly common in domestic discipline. Okay, that's like verging like into a DS dynamic, verging into BDSM and things of that nature. All right, and I can see why anal is a popular and powerful tool in teaching submission, but a lot of science behind it shows that it's not highly recommended, at least frequently. And as you've read elsewhere, it's not part of the human body's design, right? Things are meant to go out, not in. Okay, so if you're doing this, a lot of precautions have to be taken into place. Okay, because there's a lot of the flesh inside the ass is very, very soft. It's very tender. And there's a lot of blood vessels in there that can have like micro tears. And if there's any bacteria inside the rectum, that bacteria can enter the bloodstream and cause all kinds of havoc. Like it can cause like serious intestinal bloating, can cause a lot of pain. It can lead to like just overall sickness. Then they have to go on antibiotics, and it can become a whole huge mess. Okay, so just be careful with that and understand it. And then she might have to live with, very embarrassing and painful problems for weeks, months, or even years. Okay. So, and some people who have done it for a long time, they find that their woman has become incontinent, right? Meaning like she can't hold in her shit. Okay. So just be careful about this. All right. So I don't think any man who cares for a woman would really want that for her, like want her to be wearing diapers. Okay, so just keep that in mind. I mean, unless you're into the diaper thing, but I don't think she would be, okay, going to work with a diaper on. And so there's some people who will have it like once in a while. Okay, some people are just like, no, anal's completely wrong, and they don't do it. And if your woman is just against it, okay, it doesn't mean that she's being disobedient, okay, because there's medical reasons behind this that prove that it's not exactly the healthiest practice in sex. Okay, but she can be disobedient with regard to this and still be subservient to him. Okay, like just because someone has a limit doesn't mean that they're no longer subservient. It just means they have a limit. That's all. Okay, so I don't believe she should make avoiding anal a point of contention, right? It's not that big of an issue to have conflict over, because it's really about the mind. That's where submission lies, okay? In the mind, in the heart, and in the spirit. Because you could have a woman who is not obedient to you, but she gives you her ass, right? So they're not inextricably linked. I would just advise a woman to make her desires known to her man and explain why she dislikes it and why it might be harmful. All right. A considerate man with a woman that he cares about, we will hear and stop, or at least try to make it easier for her. All right. So one man writing to me on his distaste for it, he said that he agreed to only take her there once or twice a year. So she didn't like it at all, but he's like, listen, I'm gonna fuck your ass like once or twice a year. And that's what's going to happen. And, he said that they'll do the proper preparations, because like you can't cross pollinate, right? Because there's bacteria in the mouth that if you go from oral to anal, that can cause an anal infection. If you go from vaginal to anal, that can cause an infection. Okay. And obviously if you go from anal to anywhere else, that can cause infection. So this is just something to consider. All right. So the guy that wrote to me, he wasn't prepared to quit his desire for this, but was willing to be considerate up to a point. Okay. And so it's better for man and woman to work things out in similar ways with love and understanding than to let it become this point of contention. And anal sex really shouldn't be that big of a deal, because it's not incumbent upon her submission. Okay. So in summary, a man leading his woman should never forget that leading her in marital life and leading her in the bedroom are united and walk together. All right. So it's marital life or just a strong, committed, long-term relationship. Okay. The beautiful tower of leadership and submission and the sex act between a man and a woman interpenetrate each other. They unite through that shared existence, and they aid one another and express to one another. A man who is leading his woman in her growth in virtue and submission will find he has similar control in bed. A man who shows her his power and his care in bed will find the same loving control needed every day. Use the bedroom to deepen your headship and her submission inside the bedroom and outside the bedroom. You may do this every time you take her in bed, showing her that you hold her and possess her, teaching her with your hands, your lips, your mouth, your tongue, your teeth, your fingers, your voice, and your dick the power that you have, along with your intimate knowledge that you have of her and the skill at bringing her slowly to satisfaction and submission. You may do this by keeping your woman regularly open to you sexually, like I described. Like, I come home, my woman's either naked or she's wearing easily accessible loose clothing. Okay, something like a nightie that can just be like thrown upwards and boom, she's there. Okay. You teach her to learn, respond to your commands, right? You teach her how to respond. So that's verbally telling her exactly what you want her to say. Okay. So if you're like, I want my shoes, or I don't want you to say this. Like, they say she has like a response to something that you don't like. Okay. You just don't say, I don't like that. You say, I don't like that. How you expect you to respond is da 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 da. And you are very clear with exactly what you want to hear. And this is teaching her, right? You teach people how to treat you. And in power dynamics, you have to be just as clear. Okay? Teach her to learn to respond to your commands so that she knows her body is yours on command. Right? So her body, her mind, her will, all of it, it's all connected. Okay? That you are the master of her body, her mind, and her soul. Lead her in giving up all resistance to you. She should know to strip, get on her knees, bend over upon your words. Get naked, get on your knees, bend over. These three things, that you should be able to command them calmly and easily whenever you find appropriate. You can also aid her in submissiveness and softness to you by keeping her serving you sexually until she's accustomed to it. Until kneeling before you is easy and normal. Okay? And say like your girl's knees are bad. Like let's say it hurts. She can't be on her knees comfortably because of age or old injuries or something like that. You can go on Amazon and get these little stools. They're actually made for meditation, and it's tilted slightly forward. All right. And it's just maybe 15 inches wide, and it's got like little legs like this that actually fold up in. Okay. So you can like fold them down. It stores easily, which is why it folds. And you can have her sit on this with her feet tucked underneath this little bench. And it simulates kneeling very well. So this can help because it takes the pressure off the knees and puts the pressure more on her butt. All right. And it's still a kneeling position before you because it's lower. Okay. So teach her that her sexual response to you reflects her attitude and submission to you, so she can deeply express her belonging and femininity through her body. As she serves you, instruct her and help her to learn your desires and your desire for her. She should know you possess her. She is completely your desire. She can learn submission through giving herself after being disciplined, as well as her sexual service helps her learn the right attitude, which is her humility before you and desire to pleasure you. Sexual submission is far from the entire picture of submission or helping a woman through discipline, yet it helps deepen submission and soften her, okay? Sex is like it's a tenderizer for her spirit, okay? Which is, again, why you should not be focused on getting pleasure. You're missing the boat when you do that. It helps her lose some false pride and lose her self-will. Right? So it's an example, it's that microcosm where she can learn in this controlled, closed environment that it's okay to let go of her will and to let go of her ego and let go of her pride, let go of her independence, her decision-making and all that. Okay? And it also brings her great joy as she learns the profound and beautiful things that her body expresses and that what you do with her body expresses. She learns her body as a way to practice submission and be feminine for you. Most of us know this in our mind, but it's deeper to learn it in experience and for a woman to be well trained in it. You are in control. She is not going to train herself. Use intimacy and sex to help lead her to be a gentle, beautiful, and fulfilled woman. All right? So that's some of my notes on this sort of situation. Probably my phone's blowing up here. See what's going on. Oh no. Okay. All right. So yeah, let me just see what you guys are saying here. 5 Snug Ways. Welcome. I don't think I've seen you in here before. What's up, TJWK Media? So then, Mr. Justin, validating my girl while she's pleasing me gives her courage to please me more. Ignorant males talk about not to validate women, and so outdated, empathetic. Yeah, it's not. Validation isn't entirely a bad thing. It's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing, right? It's just a tool, right? It all comes down to where it's coming from and why you're doing it in the first place. So yeah, it's detrimental for these like beta males to validate because they're in a position of weakness. So it doesn't work. When it comes from a position of power and you're using validation, it becomes a very useful tool. So because they're already looking up at you, they're already looking up to you as her man. So of course that's going to be more powerful. It's going to be a lot more effective. Okay. But yeah, it's important to use a lot of positive affirmations, positive reinforcement, and letting her know that she's doing a good job. And if she's not doing a good job, let her know. Okay? Because if she's into you, she's going to want to change. Okay? And if she's not willing to change, well, then she's probably not that into you. It's that simple. Love me some good strong tea. But yeah, I hope that information was helpful. Okay. It's really important to be okay to give instruction. All right. It's really important to give instruction, and you have to be comfortable with that. You have to be comfortable with giving instruction. And if you're not, right, you'll feel it. You'll feel it in you. If you have an impulse to give an instruction, but you hold back, that's an indication that there's something inside of you that's probably afraid of losing her attention, right? You're afraid of losing her affection and shit like that. So that's something to pay attention to. Paying attention to your responses if you want to give her instruction, but you feel that you can't. Yeah. So put your questions in the chat if you got any. We're just chilling. It's a nice, relaxed Sunday afternoon. But yeah, you got to give that instruction. Got to give it. And that's why you gotta really, really break free of pleasure. Right? I'm not saying that you should detest sex or not like it anymore or whatever. I'm just saying that if you are, if you're so stuck on pleasure, if you're so controlled and seeking when it comes to pleasure, you're not going to be able to give instruction. It's just not going to work out. It really isn't. They work against each other. That's how the conductor does what he does, because he's not really listening to the music. He hears it, but he's not listening. And and this is how you bring about her whole mentality of being okay being in the position that she's in. All right, because truth is that I firmly believe that all women naturally have baked in a sense of submission, and it only looks differently from the outside based on their life experiences. And that determines like how much armor they have built up over the years because of this, because of that, and so on, right? There's a lot of factors. And as well as time spent being an independent woman, right? So the more time they've spent being independent might mean there will be more work spent and more time spent in training her. Okay. And that's okay as long as she has an attitude of being open-minded. If she recognizes, if you can help her recognize how her independence and her pride are working against the growth, and help her see this. And then from there, you can help her understand that through letting go of those things, through submission, then over time she'll become accustomed to it and understand that it's safe, that it doesn't mean her destruction, and that she can emotionally rest into your commanding leadership. Okay. And using the bedroom is the prime place to do it. It's very easy. Like once you're sexually involved, once you're fucking on a regular basis, this is the time, because in order for her to have any kind of even somewhat enjoyable sex, she has to let a portion of herself be more submissive, be more open, right? I mean, like even physically, like she literally can't have sex unless she opens her legs. Okay. So that's the beginnings of it. And you use this as an opportunity not to get off. Okay. Yes, you can get off if you want to, but it's not about you getting off. It's about teaching her how to be a type of herself, a type of self that she's not accustomed to. And that doing so is okay, that it's safe, and it actually promotes growth. Okay. And then afterwards, you can talk to her. Tell her, doesn't that feel great? Doesn't that feel great? Notice, like you can bring her awareness back to herself. Like I remember, one of my teachers, a Buddhism teacher, my shifu, when we were at the temple, he was giving a lesson or something like that. And he looks at the group of us and he says, "Are you listening?" And everyone's like, "Yeah, like of course we're listening." And he says, "Okay, now turn your awareness to the one who is listening." And everyone was like, "Oh shit." And that, because just that little phrase has a complete major shift. Are you listening? Yes. Now turn your awareness to the person who is listening. And so what you can do is draw her awareness through conversation after sex while she's relaxed, open, she's had a couple of orgasms, she's physically feeling good. At that point, you can bring her awareness to how she's feeling. Okay. And help her realize, see how relaxed you are? See how calm your mind is? Do you even remember any of the thoughts you had over the past few minutes? What a relief that was. And help her understand, like, wow, yeah, that I did take a vacation from my own brain for a little while there. And then you can teach her gratitude through that. Okay. So like in my situation, like every time a woman has an orgasm, whether I'm present or not, she has to provide thanks. And over time, like, of course, like at first she just kind of played along and maybe even thought it was like a little silly, but now she understands. Like it's taken a while, but now she understands the power in that, because in having to ask to come, that's embarrassing as it is. To have like an adult grown woman asking permission to have an orgasm, after when their whole sexual life, they've never had to ask permission. Okay. And now they're in the situation where they have to ask permission. They have to have permission to feel good in that way. And so it's humbling in a way. It's a little bit embarrassing because it's not a kid, she's a full grown adult. So it's a bit humbling. It's a little bit embarrassing and a little bit arousing at the same time, because now she's submitted control to someone else. She submitted the control of her pleasure to you. And now you take it a step further and she is to say thank you. So now, after some time of doing this over and over with these other feelings that are mixed in, the little bit of embarrassment and, the little bit of arousal of allowing this control to happen that she submitted, along with gratitude, now you've got all these feelings, these sexual and emotional and psychological things all wrapping together. And it's just a simple thank you, but it's really, really impactful. Really impactful. Damn. All right, these guys are going crazy in that group chat. Got a friend who's sick, and they had surgery, and they're out of the hospital, so the group chat is kind of blowing up a little bit, just making sure he's okay. But yeah, so you can link a lot of this stuff together once you get the basics. Once you get the basics down, and so the first part is and I'll wrap it up here because we've been going for about an hour. The first part of it is becoming accustomed and becoming okay with giving instructions. And if you're not okay with that, if you're feeling reluctant to give instructions, that's a point for you to investigate yourself as to why. What are you afraid of? Why can't you give instructions? Okay, so that's the first part. Once you become okay with giving instructions, then give 3 simple instructions when you see her. Get on your knees, bend over, and take off your clothes. And like I said, these things should be regularly implemented with your lover, okay? Be it she's just a lover, or your girlfriend, or your wife, whatever it is. And after that's being accustomed, you can even take it a step further and have her submit gratitude for those things. So after she gets down on her knees, you have her get accustomed to saying thank you after getting on her knees. Like, this is because you putting her into a state of submission is something that's to her benefit. All right. It's not to your benefit. It's to the benefit of the relationship, and it's to the benefit of her. So now you can train her to say thank you when you say, get on your knees, bend over. Thank you, sir. Take off your clothes. Thank you, sir. Because she's becoming freer by releasing from herself. Okay. And that freedom is enjoyable, and you can teach her and learn her that this is an enjoyable feeling. Okay. Also, like I had mentioned, those 3 things: take off your clothes, get on your knees, and bend over. You can incorporate that into some sort of ritual. Okay. That can be part of your regular ritual where you come over, or you live together, you come home. Let's say she's already home, or maybe she comes home after you, but you set up a things like, okay, after we get settled, the first thing you do is you get on your knees. Or maybe it's after a hug and a kiss that you get on your knees. And this is done every single time we greet, whether we live together or, we have a, bi-weekly hookup or whatever. That's the thing. Or it's bending over, or it's taking off your clothes. Like, when I get to your place, you're not to be wearing clothing. That's it. Or like whatever it is you want, like no clothing except a pair of fuzzy socks. I don't know, or slippers, or just a top, or whatever it is that you want. Okay. But something that makes her feel vulnerable and exposed. Okay. And, of course, don't abuse these sort of things. It's not about you being in control. That's not the side you're focusing on. It's about teaching her that it's okay and that it's safe to release, that it's okay and safe to be vulnerable to you, to let go of her ego, to let go of her pride, to let go of her independence, to let go of the things that have been protecting her, that she no longer needs these things. And it's all right. Everything's going to be just fine. Now open your mouth. All right. So that concludes this show. I hope that it was helpful to you. I appreciate everyone who stopped by for the live. I appreciate you who is catching this on the replay. If any of you want to check out what I have going on, go to thedominanceacademy.com. That can be found in the About section of the main profile here on YouTube, or you can go to my Instagram account, thedominanceacademy_. If you have any questions, email me at thedominanceacademy@gmail.com. And like always, my first consultation calls are always free. You just go to my Calendly, which is in the link to my bio in Instagram, and you can book a free call for an hour. We can talk about whatever it is you want to talk about. It's up to you. If you want to talk about coaching, if you want to talk about something that's going on in your life, you just want some advice, or you just want to shoot the shit, I don't care. It's your time. It's free. So get at me, and and we'll get it going on. All right, guys, I appreciate you, and we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.